that many people choose to do networking. Let's see how many people we can meet and make those right connections. However, speed networking isn't always perfect. And so there's some things that you want to do as well as things that you don't want to do when you are speed networking, especially on Zoom. So I'm excited today to be joined by Dawn, who actually hosts BNI's National Speed Networking every single week since when did that start? Like shortly after COVID, I think.
Yes, it was March 2020. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So it kicked in right away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So she hosts on a weekly, so over 100 sessions plus of these speed networking events. And so I thought, who better to talk to us about speed networking than somebody that hosts an amazing event on a weekly basis. So welcome, Dawn. Super excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany. Yes. I'm so excited to talk about speed networking. It's a passion of mine. I love doing it.
Yes. So before we get into that, just so you know, Dawn is the BNI US franchise director for BNI here in the US. She hosts the National Speed Networking for members. She is one of those, so there's not a lot, but occasionally I do get the opportunity to run into somebody that's been in BNI longer than I, and she has. So she's been in since 2000. And so that's what, 22 years now with the organization. Now
I started when I was 16, you know.
Oh my gosh, I met somebody the other day who's 21 in BNI. And I'm like, I thought I was good being young when I got into BNI like you, but I'm like, man, 21 getting into BNI.
No, I was a little over. I'm teasing. I just can't believe 22 years. What?
I get you. My next year is my 18th year in BNI. And I'm like, oh, I'd be old enough to vote in BNI now. So we're going to talk today about some speed networking, some do's, some don'ts, some tips for doing it. Though, as you're watching, if you have questions or comments in the chat, feel free. Okay, so it's not the chat, but in the comments, if you're watching on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, please let us know your questions, your comments. I will let you know that if you're on Facebook, Facebook's a little funny about communication with Restream, which is where we're at now. So I put on the link on the screen where if you're on Facebook, you can go there and it will pair your Facebook and Restream. However, if you're lazy like me, just put your name at the end of the comments and then we'll know who you are. We welcome your questions and your comments. So Dawn, I want to turn it over to you. Tell us tell us about speed networking. Just tell us what's going on. What is speed networking all about? Why should I do it? How should I do it? I know that's a lot of questions.
No, and it's interesting because I'd actually attended in-person speed networking before before the pandemic hit, and so I had an idea of what it was, and I couldn't imagine how do you do that virtually, and it's actually phenomenal that we can do this virtually. So like you were sharing, I do the U.S. National Speed Networking every week for BNI, and I'm telling you, the abilities and the technology that we have today to facilitate meeting people across the nation, worldwide, globally, it's just amazing and phenomenal because we always kind of thought of it just being in person. So
and I think breakout rooms make it easy. Plus, you never have to worry about the other person stopping talking to move on because you get kicked out of your room and then you go back in.
Exactly. And so I always tell people, the focus or the where the emphasis is on the word speed. So I tend to be one of those people that's at a clip all the time. And for speed networking, it's a real fit for me, but it's also a real fit for people who might be a little introverted or not, maybe not natural networkers. And so they're like, I'd rather, die 1,000 deaths than go to a networking event. I don't know what to say. Well, speed networking kind of helps you through that process. And, people need to know about your business. And so it's just a short amount of time. You go in, you share I'd say the best thing to do is also be prepared so that you can talk in a small amount of time about what it is that you do and how you help people, not so much all the benefits like listing what you do, but share stories, tell people how you help them, what problems have you solved, and do that in, a couple of minutes, and you'll be surprised what happens to your business.
Yeah, and I love the fact that speed networking, for those people that are extroverted and want to meet a lot of people, it gives them an opportunity to connect with many. For the introverted type like me, so I'm a hardcore introvert. And so I like the fact that it's quick, it's focused, it's structured, and I don't have to spend a lot of time with people unless I decide I like them, and then we can spend more time after the fact.
Yes.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, you bring up a good point too, because whatever business you're in, you can spend a lot of time doing one-to-ones or meeting people and going to coffees or what have you. But if you can pre-qualify people and know who would be a fit for your business by doing something, these small little increments, I think that's also beneficial.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was talking to somebody one time and they're like, is 6 minutes really enough? I'm like, usually within the first 30 to 60 seconds of the speed networking one-to-one, I know if I'm going to want to have that second meeting with the person. Not to say that I'm accurate 100% of the time, but usually it's once you do it for a while, you get used to it and you kind of know what works and what doesn't. So
Right.
Speaking of what works, I know you kind of went through a couple of things that people could share. Could you kind of lay out what are some of your best ideas of what people should say during the speed networking? And that's assuming that they're also listening too.
Right. Well, and it's kind of funny if you're not prepared. So that's really the key thing, I think, is, you need to really share, who you are, what is your name, what is your business, what is this that you do? And then, how do you solve problems? What is it that your forte is or whatever? And I always share with people, ask for your dream client. Like, so, succinctly tell us, hey, this is who I'm looking for. These people, like, who are the people that you would love to work with all day long, every day? And that's who you ask for, especially in speed networking, because you have such a limited amount of time. And so that's basically it. You just want to make sure that you're asking for the right thing and letting them know who you are, who you are, what you are, and how you solve problems.
Excellent. I love it.
Or add value. I guess you could say add value rather than solve problems. So how do you add value?
Got it. Love it. Yeah. And it's so interesting. People, I think it's like, what do you think people want to hear? Like, this is a great conversation to have. Yeah. Adding value is so much more important than let me list all the different features.
Please don't do that. If you list
and then when they screen share the list of their features, it's like, oh my gosh, really? This is what we're doing now?
Yeah, no, people aren't motivated by that. They can't think of that, they can't take that to heart. They don't understand fully. So, or they understand incorrectly, right? So if I tell you I'm an accountant, then you'll figure out what that means to you. But I may be a tax accountant, I may be an audit accountant, I may be a royalties accountant, I may be all these different things. And your summation of what I am is completely wrong. So we want to talk about what we did to help someone, what the value was that we added, all those things.
Yeah. I love using success stories in speed networking. They're one of my 3 favorite things. I actually have a video over on YouTube. I've put the link up there on the screen for y'all watching how you're doing speed networking wrong. And it takes a look at the 3 things that you want to share. And that's me talking. I'm here talking to Dawn, but those are some additional tips for those of you watching. So you kind of told us a little bit about what to share. What shouldn't we do when we're speed networking?
Well, this is the thing, is you want to be a steward of your time. You have a limited amount of time. So you don't want to go off on tangents or go down a rabbit hole, if you will, and share things that are not going to, say, bring you business or create a relationship. So I find that sometimes people get talking about something that's not pertinent or relative to what it is that they're doing. And that can, they're like, oh my goodness, that wasn't enough time. I barely got to tell them what I did. And I'm like, really? A minute is a long time. If you have 3 or 4 minutes in a breakout to talk, that's a long time. So avoid sharing all the personal stuff. Hey, who won the game? How was that? How are you doing? All those things that don't really put you closer to, say, your goals or your focus for the meeting.
Gotcha. That's an excellent point. We are limited on the time, so you have to make the most of the time.
And I'll add this too, this might not be top of mind. Someone might not think about this, but if you're doing something virtually, people are thinking, oh, I have a hands-on business. So I'm a massage therapist, I'm a plumber, or I'm doing whatever I do. I need my people that I'm working and networking with to be in my city or my town or my community. And what's interesting, we live in such a society now that people know people everywhere. So I can meet someone today in speed networking and, I might be in Los Angeles, they might be in New York. Well, they know somebody in Los Angeles or New York, and I can get business that way. So I think people miss that. They're like, I have a hands-on, a touch business. I'm not going to do speed networking nationally or outside of my community, which I have heard stories of people getting business outside of their community readily.
Yeah, we have a gentleman in my area in West Central Florida who did the speed networking early on, plumber, that got a referral from somebody like in New York to down. I live in Florida with a lot of retired people. So, and he lives in the retirement community. So it's like, oh yeah, my mom lives, and you never know who you're looking for.
Yes. Yes.
And I think sometimes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sometimes I think people, when they go speed networking, forget that their goal is to sell through, not to. And so it's like, okay, it's not, I'm looking at you here on Zoom, which I am, but I'm looking at you. Who do you have behind you? And it could be referrals, but it also could be referral sources. Or if you can't tell, I love doing live. So who can I do a Facebook Live with? All the time. Let's do more. And so I think there's more things they can be asking for.
Exactly. No, exactly right. You're absolutely spot on.
So I have an interesting scenario, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I told Dawn I had an interesting question, but I didn't tell her what the interesting question was because I was like, oh my. Now, this was not a BNI speed networking event that she hosted, so it wasn't her. But I was talking to a woman last week, and she shared she was on a speed networking event, and the gentleman gave his presentation, his spill. When it came time to switch, he looked at her background virtual behind her and was like, oh, wait, are you with an MLM? Oh, I can't do business with an MLM. I'm leaving the room.
Oh, my. Yes. Wow. And just to your point, just what you were saying, I want to work through people and not, and you never know. It's so interesting. The dynamics in building relationships hold true for your business as well. So you just never know who's going to give you your single biggest client, right? Or patient or customer, whatever it is. So no matter what industry someone is in, they may live next door to someone who would need your service or product. They may have a neighbor or a family member or, a friend that would be your biggest client. So to just eliminate people because of the industry or the business that they're currently in is something that I would say you want to avoid at any cost. You would not want to do that at all. And so bless their heart. Maybe they were trying to be efficient with time or something. I don't know why anyone would do that. They just don't know. So I always try to give the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, this individual just didn't understand that dynamic. And then I try to explain to them if I know who they are and let them know. Because unfortunately, that person may be sitting on what we call a goose and laying golden eggs for them, meaning, you're teaching them to fish and not giving them fish. What if they had one of those people as their best friend or neighbor?
Yeah. I guess if it's like an all day affair, it's different, but we're talking 6 minutes. Yes. And when she was like, well, he saw on my background, I'm like, he didn't take the time to look on your background for the 3 minutes he was talking about himself. He made sure to get his stuff in. And then left. I'm like, wow, I don't think I've ever heard, and I'm sure there's plenty more horror stories like that out there.
Yes. And my mother used to tell me, gimme, gimme never gets. So I always think of that in networking.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some times where I'm talking to somebody and maybe I'm not as big of a fan of their product or service. I would think so. I know that you're prior to being the U.S. Franchise director, you did I'm sorry, I want to make sure I don't mess up. What, your doctorate of Eastern medicine? What's your?
I have a master's degree in Chinese medicine. Yeah. So I was an acupuncturist. So in my meeting or my group or chapter, I was the acupuncturist.
And I'm sure you met with plenty of people that were skeptical.
Oh, like
needles. No, I would never do that.
Every day.
But that doesn't mean, so even if you're not necessarily a believer, like I'm a believer, like if I have something going on wrong in my body, I'm asking my acupuncturist, my acupressurist, my neuroschematic massage therapist to fix me before I go to a Western doctor. Like I'm all in for the Eastern medicine, please. But not everybody believes that. But if you're not into that, that doesn't mean you want to cut the person off that you're talking to, because you never know who the golden goose is, even if maybe you're not a good fit for me, but that's okay.
No, absolutely. And I've actually driven people to the ER who needed to have care. And I actually refer out to MDs all the time. I have a series of MDs that I work with all the time because I love Western medicine. Western medicine is phenomenal. I also love what I do in Eastern medicine as well. So exactly right. Perfect example, because some people just, everyone is different. If
Different
we all
beliefs,
wanted a BMW, we wouldn't have any BMWs left in this world, right?
right.
So
Love
it's
it.
good
And
to
for those of
have
you
a
watching
team
this, if
for
you
us.
haven't tried West Eastern medicine, try it. To me, it's not an either or; it's a yes and.
Exactly.
Where's the best? So that was a tangent. Sorry, y'all. What other tips might you have, or things for us to consider for during speed networking? But I think probably one of the biggest elements is going to be, what do we do after speed networking?
So after speed networking, generally speaking, in the situation that we have, I send out a report with everyone's contact information. And so that's how you don't have to spend time in your breakout room getting people's contact information and get follow-up stuff from them. I just send a report out with everyone's name and email address so you can reconnect with those that you met with in a breakout room. The thing not to do is to spam everyone on that list. Please, we're trying to build relationships. We're not trying to do an immediate sale like you mentioned earlier. You're not just going to bat trying to sell your business. You're learning how to build, you're learning about that person and building a relationship. You just never know who they know. You never know how they can serve you or how you can serve them. So I always, I just try to share with people, if you're going to blanketly take some contact information and you're going to just spew all of your stuff onto them, it's usually not received well, and you damage a business relationship rather than build one. So that's one thing not to do.
I think that's so important. I don't know why people think like, hey, I got the email, let me reach out. I actually did a speaking engagement this morning, and the host was like, do you want a list of everybody's emails that were here? And I'm like, no. They're like, really? I'm like, look, they have sheets where they can say, I want emails from Tiffanie. Like, if they opt in, I'll send them. If they didn't opt in, I may not be their flavor. I don't want to harass them. We don't like spam.
Exactly. And it damages a business relationship. It's just I always say you want to be who you are in person when you're on any kind of thing, social media or speed networking, anything like that. And it's not natural to say, hey, here, take my information. I would never walk up to someone and do that. So I wouldn't do that in speed networking or in social media either.
Yeah. And as you were talking about kind of the follow up and what you do, it made me think I do a cheat sheet when I do speed networking. So I'm taking notes, whether I find out something in common. We lived in the same city. We have a similar interest. We have similar target market. So I'm usually taking notes, because if you're meeting people rapid fire, you can't really deal with it right then and there. And so oftentimes I'll get done with my speed networking, and then because speed networking is 4 p.m. Eastern time on the Tuesdays. So usually Wednesday mornings, I have time to follow up because Dawn's got the email list to us, and I can go through and see who did I meet that I had a connection with that I wanted to follow up with.
And isn't it, to your point, isn't it easier to say, gosh, it was so nice to have met you. I enjoy cooking too. Or I like reading too. Or Tiffanie, I also collect socks.
Yeah. And then it's like, okay, we have that bond going on. Yay.
Yes. And so then we follow up, and it's not, and this is the other thing I'll add too. The thing that you always want to do and to be is authentic and genuine. You never want to go into a setting personally, social media and or speed networking, and not be authentic, so that's another thing. Show up how you are. Be you. You are the best you there is in any setting.
Love it. Love it. And one other tip that I had, and then I'll ask if you have any more before we see where we can find you and anything else and all that fun stuff. I learned this early on at an actual BNI conference back in Orlando, early to mid 2000s. And that is, I never say it's so nice to meet you, because you may have met the person before, and if you don't remember, but they do. So it's nice to see you. It's nice to connect with you, because I've had some people before like, oh, Tiffanie, so we've never met before. What's going on? And because I have a cheat sheet and I look at it, like I have the dates that I talked to people and what I said. So as they're coming into the room, I'm looking to see, have I met them before, and looking at my notes. And look, it's a hack because I don't remember everything. They're like, oh, I've never met you before. I'm like, we've talked twice, last month and last year. They're
yes.
like, oh, and probably if I was nice, I would have just let them get away with it. But I don't know. It's kind of fun.
No, I love you bring this up because you're so right. Nice to have met you is probably not a thing to say because I actually have firsthand experience with that. Honest to God, I have met this one gentleman 6 times. He's been formally introduced. He's also introduced himself to me a couple of times. And
Oh,
every
no.
time he says that, oh, it's so nice to meet you and tell me about yourself. And I'm like, okay, for the 6th time. I'm not very memorable, I guess. But it's something that, yes. I don't know him well. Obviously, I don't know him well because I've not spent the time to cultivate that relationship. But
Yeah.
it is off-putting for me every time I meet him that he's like, "Wow, it's so nice to meet you. What, how are you? What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, sometimes I make things up now."
See, and that's why forget saying nice to meet you, nice to connect
Yes.
you, nice to see you, and then you don't have to worry about it, and you're helping your VCP instead of hurting it.
Yes.
Okay, we've covered a ton of stuff here in this 20 minutes. Again, I've got a little bit a video. It's only 7 or 8 minutes where we touch a little bit more in depth of what to say when you're networking. Though we've gone through a lot of do's and don'ts here with Dawn. Anything else, Dawn, that you would like to add? I'll let you think about that for a second while I share. So speed networking, it is at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That's where I'm at. It's 2 Mountain Time, 1. You can figure this out.
Yeah.
You're smart. And it's via BNI, and go to your regional BNI website. And I do believe the National Speed Networking should be on your BNI on the website. If not, you can reach out to Dawn or I, and we will help make sure you get that link to go over and do some speed networking.
Absolutely. And I will
Anything else you want to add for the audience, Dawn?
I just want to say, yes, I do the speed networking for BNI. However, I'd like to coach everyone that's on and joins us, please do, that if a visitor does manage to come on, then we just politely ask them if they'd like to become a member, because that's a great opportunity for us to meet someone and bring them into our network, right? They're either a client, customer, or patient for all of us. So if a visitor does come on, that's fine. Our link is on the website. So we do have visitors sometimes joining us, and then we just have the people coached in the rooms to say, we'd love for you to be a member, because this is really technically for BNI members. We love you're here today. Please check us out. Hopefully this is one of the reasons why you'd want to be a part of BNI.
Yeah, I actually met somebody that they joined their local chapter so they could do the National Speed Networking. And I know we're talking the National Speed Networking, but many regions in BNI. So if you're in a different region in BNI or across the globe, many regions actually have their own local speed networking as well as our national US speed networking.
Right. And I think that's a value. I love that we do the regional.
If we're looking to connect with you, where can we find you? How can we contact you?
I'm at my name, Dawn Margowski at BNI.com.
Makes it super easy. Well, Dawn, I want to say thank you so very much for your time to share your brilliance when it comes to speed networking. You are the guru that takes care of us every Tuesday. Excited to have you here with us to share here.
And Tiffanie, thank you for having me. And I just really give you a shout out too, because I'm telling you, you do so much great things, so much great work, everything that you do, all the events that you have. I've always had just the best time and learned so much and have become a better business professional. So I really want to give you a promotional or a testimonial right there, because you guys are doing so much where you are. And I'm so grateful we have the ability to work with each other across the miles through a virtual capacity. So I love what you do, and all the best to you.
Thank you so very much. Thanks, y'all, for watching. And I look forward to seeing you next week as we dive into more on our Monday BNI Talks. Happy networking, y'all.
Yay.